Good morning, guys. Today we're going to be testing out the bareMinerals Pro Performance Long Wear Liquid Foundation. This foundation claims to be a 24-hour with matte to natural looking tones on the face. It says a flawless medium to full coverage, lasts all day, creamy blendable texture for luxurious comforts. It's oil free and it's supposed to improve your skin over time. So you get 1 fluid ounce for $34, and that's pretty standard for your higher end foundations. $34 isn't a bad price if it actually works. And this does have an SPF of 20 in it. bareMinerals did make a brush for this foundation. It is another $31, I believe. So I decided against that brush. Even though they do offer a brush for a foundation, I don't believe it's necessary. I think a foundation should work with any brush or blender that you have, and if it doesn't, then it's just not worth your time or money or effort. That's just my opinion. I just feel like a lot of people don't want to spend $60 on a foundation and brush, especially if it may or may not work for them. So again, that is just my opinion. It's a very liquidy foundation. I have worn this twice already. I wanted to get a good feel of it, and I do have some opinions on it. So I'm going to go ahead and shake this up. Mind you, this does have a close to 5-star rating on the bareMinerals website, on Ulta's website, and also on Sephora's website. So this does have a really good rating on it. I am wearing a sunblock, which is from Paula's Choice, and I do have the ordinary highly adhesive silicone primer already on my face, and that is it. So we're going to go ahead and go on with the foundation. I'm going to be using on this side the Makeup Forever You brush with the paddle brush, and then on the other side I'm going to go ahead and use the blender, my Real Techniques blender. So this pump is very nice. It has a lock on it, which is awesome. I think those locking pumps are amazing, and this is also a glass container, so be aware of that. Don't drop this, you will break it. You'll be very upset at yourself. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just pump one pump here. It is kind of a liquidy foundation. It is, see how it just seeps right into the brush there? So that's something to be aware of. It's not a thick foundation at all, which is kind of funny when it comes to a foundation that claims to be a all day wear, 24-hour wear foundation. In the video on this foundation on the bareMinerals website, they said to brush downwards and out. So here's one pump on this side here. It's a very sheer coverage, one pump, and then here's the side without the foundation. So you can kind of see the difference here. This does matte out really rather quick, so be aware of that. You need to work a little bit quick with this foundation because it does matte out really quick. This also says that you do not need to set it. It says it's a self-setting foundation, so that's another thing to be aware of. If you get oily throughout the day, you can set this, but it's not necessary according to the website. Alright, so let's go on the other side with the blender. I'm going to do one more pump, and I'm going to place this here. And like I said, I'm going to work as fast as I can because this does set extremely quick. Alright, so that is one pump on each side. This is the brush side, this is the blender side. I honestly don't see any difference from the blender side to the brush side. Let me go ahead and zoom you guys in so you can see. It is a very medium coverage with the one pump of it. So let's go ahead and see how this covers with just a little bit more. I'm just going to put a little bit more in my cheek area here to kind of cover up some of that redness, and then maybe a little bit in some of the areas here where I have some scarring that is still trying to go away. I'm just going to use my damp beauty blender to blend that out, since I feel like both sides do the same with the brush and the blender. Alright, there we go. So I feel like just adding just a tiny bit more on some of my areas of my face did cover it up a little bit better. So here's the side with some of the scarring that I just kind of covered up there. it's not a full cover, it's really not, and I think that if you keep on adding you can get a full coverage, but I think the more that you add the more cakier it's going to get because it is a matte foundation, so just be aware of that. I think that I'm okay with the coverage that it's giving me right now, even though I can kind of still see some of the scarring that I have on my face. I'm okay with that. I feel like it is taking away the redness on my face, which is really nice. And it feels matte. It dried down really quick, so this is a foundation that you definitely want to work quick with. I don't feel like my face is dewy at all, so that's good. It's definitely a matte. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest of my makeup on, and then I'll come back and show you what the finished look looks like, and tell you how it performs with other makeups. I am gonna be using my under eye concealer from Benefit under my eyes. I'm just going to use this by itself. I'm not going to use any other concealers or anything under it, just this, and then, you know, just regular blush and contour and stuff like that. So the foundation is on our face at exactly 11:40 in the afternoon exactly. Hopefully you can see that. So all right, I will be back here in a little bit to show you what the makeup
all right guys,
looks like. So this is how the finished look came out. I think the foundation does okay with other makeups on top. The only issue that I'm having is we started this video at 11:40, I believe was when we finished putting the foundation on. It is now 12:30, and just in my nose area, do you see how it is starting to gather in my pores? There, I hope you guys are catching that. So it doesn't take too long for this foundation to really gather in my pores on my nose. So the first day I used this foundation, I used the Step 1 pore filler, and I don't remember if it's from Benefit. SmashBox, put a description of it right here so you know which one I used. And then I used the SmashBox one yesterday, and then today I'm just using the ordinary because I wanted to see if there was a difference. All 3 days it did that, so that's something to be aware of. I do blend my foundation in really well. I know when you're watching me blend on the camera that it seems like I just do it really fast, but just so you know, I edit a lot of that blending out. That way you're not sitting there bored watching me blend. So I do get a very good blend. It's not like I'm just slapping it on. So that's also something to be aware of. It's not going so bad on this side here, on the side where I use the brush, but the side of the blender is where it is starting to gather in the pores. So that's where we are right now. It did take me a minute to finish my makeup, and then I'm filming another video at the same time, so I'm doing 2 different things at one time, so that's why it took me an hour to come back. But within that hour, that's where the makeup is sitting. Other than that, I think it looks really, really nice on the face. It's very, very smooth. I feel like you almost have a filter over your face. It definitely looks like that, and it gives a really nice coverage. So other than it doing some weird stuff in my pores right now, I really do like this foundation. It does kind of sit in the creases in my forehead as well. So that is something that you will have to deal with. You can always take your brush and go through after the fact and try to, you know, blend those out. But we are just an hour into this foundation, and that's what it's doing. So I will come back at the end of the day, probably in about 10 hours to show you what it looks like at the end of the day. I would say 10 hours is an accurate amount of time to let this foundation sit on your face and see what happens. If anything funky happens between now and the 10 hours, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. But I think that the 10-hour mark is where we're going to finish this foundation review. Alright guys, so I'll be back in a little bit. Bye! Alright guys, so it has now been 4 hours. 5 hours? It is... Ooh, let me just take some of these off there real quick. 4:44. It's going to be 5. It's 4:59. So we started at 11:40. So as you can see, I'm getting a little oily, which is normal, even though this is considered a matte foundation. I believe it's a liquid matte foundation. I still get oily. I did not powder my face after I put it on, so I didn't like set like I would normally bake and set my face. I did not do that today. For the simple reason is I wanted you to see how it would work without any like setting powder, since this is supposed to be a self-setting foundation. I wanted to show you how it self-sets itself. So I did put powder under my eyes after I used concealer under my eyes. I literally took a brush and patted right under my eyes here, and that was all I did. So there is no powder on the rest of my face right now. The foundation is holding up really well. Like I said, I am oily, so I'm just going to take my blotter, especially right here in this area. I'm a little oily. I'm going to just take my sponge on the clean side and just go through and just blot all that oil off. This is what I would normally do around this time, or I would use a blotting paper, but I really think I'm out of blotting paper, so I need to go pick up some more. So this is what I'm going to do. Just blot the oiliness off. I normally just get oily in this T-zone area. I don't get oily throughout the rest of my face, and now during the summer months I'm more dry in this area as well, so I'm like oily and dry. Really weird. I get patches of dryness, which I know is weird, but that's just how my skin is. Somebody actually questioned me about that not too long ago and asked me, they just said oily and dry. That's very strange, which it is, but it is my face, so I mean that's how it works. But okay, so now at 4 hours, now that I have patted off the oils, I think it looks really well. There is just a little bit of foundation in the creases of my nose there, and the area here where the pores were looking kind of funny, where the makeup was kind of pulling in the pores of my nose, has pretty much went away right now. Probably because the oils on my face have mixed in with it and it's kind of smoothed it out. But at the beginning of the day, I hope you guys could see that in the video when I filmed it, that it was definitely pulling in the pore area of my nose. And then the lines on my forehead, it does kind of pull in on the lines of my forehead, so you can see a little bit of cakiness in here, and I hope the camera's catching that. I'm poking myself in the forehead with my nail, but it does cake a little bit there. And then of course, like, I do have the concealer under my eyes here, so I'm not going to say much about that. That's mostly the concealer and then the setting powder there. But other than that, I think the foundation is doing okay. We didn't do a full coverage. We just did one pump on each side and then a little bit in between, like right in this area, just to add it up. So during the summer months, I don't really like a full coverage, but so far I think it's doing okay. All of my makeup has stood on really well. My contour and my blush and the highlight that I used today has stood on really well so far in the 4.5 hours. I think it's 4.5 hours, either 4 to 4.5 hours. I don't remember, but it's doing pretty well. Would I say that this is gonna last me for a full 24 hours? I don't know. I've never worn this foundation for 24 hours. I've only worn it for between, I would say, 10 to 14 hours. And so I'll come back again at the end of the night. We'll go in about another 4 to 5 hours, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like then. Me and my husband went out to eat. It's our cheat day, so we actually went and got something from a restaurant, and then I've just literally been at home watching TV, and we have air conditioning in our house, so it's been kind of cool. And I have air conditioning where I work, so it's kind of cool there as well. So I haven't actually tested this foundation out in the elements too much, as far as just, you know, going from the car or just going shopping, like to get groceries, something like that, being outside, stuff like that, but not for like long periods of time. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm just kind of, you know, relaxing. I don't do like strenuous work at work, and I don't really do strenuous work at home. So that's also something to keep in mind with this foundation. Now I can tell you, when I used to wear the bareMinerals powder foundation, I used to work outside back in the day, and I did strenuous work then, and that foundation always held up really well. So I have high hopes for this one to do the same for people that do work out in the elements. We'll see. But so far, like I said, I think it's doing pretty good. We're gonna give it another 4 to 5 hours, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on it. But I hope you guys can see how well it looks. I think it still looks pretty darn good for the most part, but it's not the end of the day yet, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Alright guys, so it is now, let's see, 9:14 in the evening, so that would be about 9 hours that we've had this foundation on. I'm a little tired and I want to take it off, so I'm going to go ahead and end this review. But here we are. So I am getting oily, but I mean, I do have oily skin, so that's a given for any foundation. I don't care if it is an oil control foundation or if it is foundations that have oils in it or make me dewy. I will always get oily. It does not matter. That's just my skin. So I can never fault a foundation for that unless it disappears at the same time. And this foundation has not disappeared at the same time as my face being oily. As you can see, it is still there. So again, I'm going to take a clean portion of my blender and just pat this off so we can see what the foundation looks like underneath the oils that I have. There we go. So, okay, as you can see, I'm just kind of looking in my mirror down here. It did kind of fade away in this area right here. So it did not last for the 24 hours that it suggested that it would. Also in the nose area, it's come off. I did not wear glasses today just because I was just being lazy and I didn't want to put them on, and I also didn't wear contacts today, so I've been blind all day. But if I would have wore glasses, and I have wore glasses, it does definitely fade away under the glasses, just FYI. Secondly, this foundation does kind of cake up in the lines of my forehead, but nothing that's overwhelmingly concerning, and you can't really see it unless you're spreading the lines in your forehead. So I mean, I've had other foundations that have done that, and so it's not a huge deal unless it's really noticeable, and this is not a noticeable cake up in the lines type of foundation. It does dry down really quickly when you're putting it on, and when it dries down on my face, it dries down to almost a powdery type of foundation feel on the face. So it dries down quick and then it turns to powder, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that it says that you do not need to set it with a setting powder, that it is a self-setting foundation, and I do agree with that. It definitely sets quickly and it dries down really quickly, and it does not leave your face feeling dewy. Anyways, it did not make my face feel dewy at all after it had dried down. And like the first couple of minutes of it being on the skin, it just dried down and it was done. At that point, you can no longer move the foundation around, so you have to be very quick when you put this foundation on. It does not allow for much time for you to play around with the foundation, so you're going to want to put it on in portions. You don't want to dot it all over the face. That's not going to work for you, because then you're going to have a patchy mess on your face. So if you do pick up this foundation, just remember that you need to work quickly and not dot it all over the face. Just work in portions on your face and you should be fine. Secondly, it does kind of sit funky in my pores when I wear certain primers, and so that could just be the primer that I was wearing, because today it did not do that. So it did really rather well with just this one here, the one from The Ordinary, the high adhesive silicone primer. So it may need a silicone primer to go with it. I do know that bareMinerals came out with some primers for this particular foundation. So they have like a matte primer, and then they have a hydrating primer. I did not pick those up. They're pretty pricey, so I just wanted to try out the foundation, and that's the reason why I didn't pick up the brush to go with it as well, because that was pretty pricey. So will I keep this foundation? I think I will. I think that I like it. It's probably not my #1 foundation right now in the summer months. I think during the winter, when it is a little bit less you know, hot out, this foundation is going to do really well on my skin. Right now it doesn't do bad. I now have realized that I have to use a different kind of primer with it to make it work on my face. Also, I did notice yesterday that it did kind of stick to some dry spots that I had on my face here, so that's something to be aware of. If you have dry patchy spots, you need to use I would probably get a sample of the bareMineral primers and see if you can get that to work with you. Maybe the dewy or the hydrating primer might work better with this foundation if you have dry patches. I don't think it'd be bad on dry skin. I just think that you might need to get the right primer, and preferably probably the one that bareMinerals made for it, or to get a hydrating type of primer just in general when using this particular foundation. I think if you are a oily person, that their matte primer would probably work really well. I haven't tried it out, and I think I may pick up a sample of that to try it out with it to see how that works. And if I do, I will leave it down in the description bar at some point later on in life, or I may come back in the winter months and try this out again so you can see how it works during the winter as opposed to how it works during the summer months, because foundations do work differently on my face in different times of the different times of the year. So I like this foundation. Do I suggest you guys run out and pick it up right now? I don't know that I can do that because I do have a lot of drugstore foundations that perform probably just as good as this, if not better. So I can't say run out and get this unless you're really wanting to try it out. But I think that it covers very well. It leaves my face looking really nice throughout the day if I have the right primer on, and it doesn't fade away. And it does still look like I have makeup on. All of my contour and my blush and my highlighter has stood on all throughout the day. I didn't put on very much concealer today under my eyes because I wanted to see how it performed just by itself, and I can tell you that when I do use the brightening concealer and then the stick concealer under it, it does get a little cakey. Also, if I try to use the airbrush concealer under it, it does get a little cakey. So just be aware of that. But again, that could just be the fact that I used different kind of primers yesterday and the day before with that. And so I wanted to see how it worked today. It works okay. So I do know that bareMinerals has under eye concealers and all that stuff, and I really do like the bareMineral line. I like the ingredients they use. I like the fact that they are all natural, they're paraben free, they don't have any, you know, fillers or anything like that, so it's actually really good for your face. And they say the longer that you use this foundation, the more it's going to make your face look better throughout the months of using it. So that's going to be a test that I'm going to put this through. Again, I do already have some foundations from the drugstore that I really like, and like I said, I can't say run out and get this unless you're really curious, but I don't dislike this foundation, and I would give it a thumbs up, aside from the fact that you have to almost find a primer that's going to work for you with this. And you know what, for the most part you have to do that with most foundations when it comes to foundations, because not all foundations and primers work together, so you almost have to mix and match. And I am pretty lucky that I have a few different ones because I have a review channel. There are not a lot of people out there that do, so you almost have to it's like a coin toss. Am I getting the right primer? Am I not for certain foundations? So if you ever have that problem with a foundation that's not working for you, maybe try a different kind of primer. See if the ingredients are matching up with the ingredients in the bottle, and then they may work a little bit better for you. But anyways, all right, now that I've talked forever, that is my review of this foundation, guys. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are, if you've tried it yet, if you're thinking about trying it, and if this helped you out at all, if you want to try it out. I do like this foundation. I think it does give my face a really youthful look, and it does last all day. I've always just liked bareMinerals products, so I do give this a thumbs up. But again, like I said, foundations work differently on everybody, and so do primers. So make sure you test something out, especially something this expensive, before you jump in and buy the full container. So, alright guys, I hope you have a great afternoon. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, now would be a good time to do so, and I shall talk to you guys sometime within the week. Bye!